Hey guys, this is Anna. Welcome back to Illuminating Stories. In today's video, I wanted to share a little bit about my shamanic awakening experience and specifically what led up to that awakening, how I was able to get that calling confirmed, and how I was able to make that transition from being a full-time corporate executive in financial services to a full-time shaman with my own healing practice. If you're interested in learning more, then keep on watching. All right, so to start off, I'm just going to share a little bit about what a shaman is and what it is that we do. And shamanism in general is really an ancient, heart-centered form of healing, and it has strong indigenous roots. Basically, we are conduits of energy and an intermediary between our physical reality that we live in and the spiritual realms or the spirit world. And energy healing in general and shamanic healing really gives you access to your heart space to really open up your own healing abilities. All I am doing as a shaman is holding space and being a vessel to that process. So we're really partners more than anything else. And so I think that's really important for people to understand that. And I actually have a lot of information on my website about what shamanic healing is about, what type of shamanic healing ceremonies I perform, and a little bit more information about shamans in general. So if you're interested in learning that content, then I will definitely link it down below. Shamans in general, the reason why a lot of people won't necessarily volunteer to step on this path is because we're often known as wounded healers, meaning our lives and the life experiences that ultimately lead up to that calling or that shamanic awakening is incredibly painful. And I am no exception. It's just that I had no one to kind of guide me through this process, and I had no idea this is what it was about. And so my actual shamanic awakening happened on March 9th of 2019, so a little over 1 year ago. And for 5 years prior, starting in 2014 is when everything, like life as I have known it, was flipped upside down, and it just progressively got worse and worse and worse. It was like one thing after another, and it was just relentless. So I'll start with 2017, and anything prior to that event or to that year, I'm going to share it in separate videos, but without going into a lot of details, because I don't really want to talk about my corporate life as much. But I remember one day I was working late. It was Friday night. Then it was 9 months after I lost my dad to cancer, and it was a struggle. Anyway, I was overcome with these emotions that were partly like just feeling so suffocated, feeling rebellious, and just wanting to be free, and this deep, deep yearning, like my purpose is something else. And it felt so crazy to me because by then I had already invested 15 years into my career, and I didn't know where all this was coming from. All I knew was I was typing up that resignation letter, and I had no idea what I was going to do, but I felt confident that I was going to work through it. And I remember one night I was starting to feel really guilty that I had created that mess, and for the life of me, I could not figure out what I was supposed to do. And I think another part of me felt like I wasn't done after all with this corporate life. And I've always been the type of person where if I prayed about something or if I wanted something, like manifesting that into my reality have always been relatively smooth and easy for me, which I thought was always so interesting and bizarre. But I think this was one time where I knew that whatever I wanted, I needed to ask for, because I knew this was my last chance before I fully say goodbye to the industry and the career that I had built up until then. And I think I just intuitively knew that. So I remember very specifically asking for, I want this title, I want to make X amount of money, and down to the dollar. I was very, very specific. And I want to move out of state. I want to get away from everything, start over, to like really heal from everything that's been accumulating for about 5 years, and just the loss of my dad that just tore me apart. And there's a lot that happened during his illness that contributed to why I was having such a hard time. But anyway, I think he was acting as that shield and that protector, because at a young age I used to have experiences, and I think he's known that aspect of me, and I think he's worked really hard to shield me and protect me. When that protection went away, I think that's when everything just started kind of accelerating, I should say. So anyway, I asked for all of the specifics, and then it was just like a snap of a finger, and like, all of a sudden I got the interviews that I needed. It went so smoothly. I got the title I wanted. The dollar amount was exactly what I had asked for, and it was out of state. And so that's how I ended up moving from, Texas to Annapolis, Maryland, which, we're living at right now. And so I made the move, or we made the move. My mom lives with us as well since my father passed away. So it was my mom, my husband, our 3 dogs. And, the job at first was everything that I thought I wanted. More above everything else, I adored my team. And it was more of a niche down segment of the clientele. And I thought maybe that was my purpose. Maybe I just needed to cater to a different customer base than I had. And maybe I didn't have to give up my career up after all, right? So, but as soon as I thought that, I just felt that shift in the air. And I started getting the sense that, like, I got that same urge like I did the year before, where like I was feeling so boxed in, so suffocated, and like the person that I had become when I stared like in the mirror, like I didn't know who she was. Like, who is that girl? Like, where did I go? Sorry guys, as I was editing, I realized I had lost a bunch of footage right in the middle, so I'm gonna try to refilm that. And as you can see, it is nighttime now, so bear with me with the change in lighting. But I remember in January 19, it was right after the holidays and right before we were all going back to work. I was sitting in the couch, and literally I was wishing in my head, if we were going to do layoffs, that I wished it was me. And I would rather it be me than any members of my team. And in my head again, I was kind of going through my wish list of specifically what I would have loved for it to entail, and how I wanted to use a portion of that time to really go inwards and focus on my healing, because I was at a point where I was desperate. I knew I had to figure out a way to heal, and that it was time for me to really figure out what my purpose in life was. It was that strong. And I remember a day or two after thinking that and wishing, I had a dream, and the dream was very specific. And so I knew that Monday when I went in that something was going to happen, and most likely I was going to lose my job. I think above all else, I was just really relieved, and I was grateful that things turned out the way they did. The fact that I would have gladly given up my job for my team anyway, and for it to have happened the way it did, the timing, everything was just, I was grateful. In the beginning of February, I was just scrolling through Instagram and this person started following me. And when I looked at her profile, she was an empath coach. And I remember hearing the term empath before, but I had no idea what that was. And I started researching, and the more I researched and read about it, I was like, oh my God, like I am not alone. That's exactly what I've been experiencing all my life. And I reached out to my sister and I asked her, and she suggested, then why don't you try out Reiki? And I've never heard of Reiki. I did some research. And anyway, I went in for that Reiki session, and oh my gosh, it was so refreshing to be in a room where I was just so like amazed at the beautiful energy, the compassion. I just felt so safe, and I haven't felt that safe in forever. And the most beautiful thing was when I got done with that first session, I was like, like this is what it feels like to finally be able to breathe. And this is what it feels like to finally feel peace in my head and just in my state of being. It was like the most miraculous thing I've ever experienced. By my third Reiki session, I was feeling so much better. I was actually sleeping. I was taking better care of myself. I felt so much lighter energetically. And I remember in that particular session when she was kind of working in my throat area, like around my throat chakra, like I felt this like distinct vibration in my left ear area. And it was like the most bizarre sensation. It was kind of like it was like just vibrating. Like it was weird. And I remember talking to her saying, oh my gosh, I feel like my throat chakra is opening up. I had this feeling something big was going to reveal itself. And so I remember coming home. I went to bed. It was in the middle of the night, and my head kind of bumped up against the top of one of the pillows, and it just kind of started, it felt like this charging sensation on the top of my head, and I didn't know what was going on. And so I just laid there. And then that sensation started traveling downwards all the way to my feet. So from head to toe, it was electric, and it was like this, it felt like I was charging with energy or electricity, and I couldn't move. And I had no idea what was going on. And so I was kind of laid there, almost paralyzed. And then I started hearing this percussion-like music. I heard drumming. I heard chanting. And then the next thing you know, my husband just jumps out of bed, falls off, and runs to the bathroom, and he vomits. And he walks out, and he's like, I have no idea what that was. But he's like, my throat and my chest is burning. It felt like bile. And so I kind of laid there, and I didn't know what that was. So I just looked at him and asked if he was okay, and he said yes. And then we went back to bed, and I remember as I was falling back asleep, repeatedly saying, I feel like there was something important I was supposed to remember, but I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't remember. So when I went back to bed, I was shown this really old, ancient-looking book, and it had already opened up to the middle, and on the right-hand side of the page was 3 words, and those 3 words were shamanic spiritual awakening. And I remember waking up, what just happened? Like, what was that? What was that? And I was kind of in disbelief because I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know what I had just experienced. And I knew very little about shamans, shamanism, like all of that. It just was not anything that, even in my wildest of imagination. And so as I sat there trying to contemplate what that was, I felt this urge and this gentle nudge to reach out to one of my cousins. And when I reached out to her, I felt guided to ask, hey, are there shamans and healers on any part of our family? And she said, well, actually, yes. On our grandmother's side, we're shamans and healers. But I'm actually half Korean, but my other half is Hispanic. And on the Hispanic side, it's, part Mexican and part Spanish. And, well, I guess all Mexicans are going to be part indigenous and part Spanish. That's what Mexicans are. And so my grandfather was from Spain and my grandmother was from Mexico, but more on the indigenous side. And so that's the grandmother's side, the indigenous aspect of our lineage is where the shamans and healers were. So my ancestors. For the next couple of days and nights were just confirmation, dreams and messages and visions, and then in dreams it would just be repeated chanting and drumming and percussion music and repeating words of shaman, 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 and it went on for days. And I didn't know what else to do because no one in my family really talked about any of those things. And my grandmother had passed away even before I got to meet her. So the only thing I could do was good old Google, right? And so I started kind of researching, well, are there shamans in the area that I might be able to go at least get it confirmed? I remember making that appointment and I talked his ears off in terms of everything that was happening leading up to that point. And that's when he confirmed, with the spirit world that I have been called, that I do have what it takes. And they really wanted me to answer the call, and they're waiting for my answer. And I think, before I went to go get this confirmation, the spirit world was very proactive in showing what my life could be like if I said yes. And that's the thing, from the get-go, from day one, the spirit world was nothing but loving, supportive, and just unconditional in how they interacted with me. And I remember they were showing me, like, it was 2 to 3 years into the future of where I was then. And the future version of myself they showed me was just a complete 180 from the mess that I was back then. And the energy that I was emanating, I was at peace. I was healed. And I wanted to be her. I wanted to step into the person I always thought I was. I knew by saying yes, I could get there. And by getting there, I knew the deep yearning that I had inside of wanting to help other people heal would become my new reality. And it was in that moment where everything that I had built in the material world meant nothing. I wanted nothing more to have the life that they said I could have by walking this path. And that's why I said yes. And I remember that night when I came home and I finally told my husband, and it was about 2 weeks after the shamanic awakening. And I remember just talking to him, and I was so scared. I was so scared. Because, you know, my husband, he's an all-American boy. He's not that young. We're not young. Like, I didn't think he would understand, and I honestly thought he would freak out, and I thought he would leave me. Like, I honestly didn't know if we were going to be able to overcome this new reality. And I was just so grateful when all he said was, he just looked at me. I was like, oh, so that's why I, you know, jumped out. You're like electric shock. And all he said to me was, babe, I just want you to be okay. I just want you to heal and be happy. And we'll figure out the rest. You know what this means for you, for us. But he said, we'll do it together. I still love you. I remember I was looking at him so grateful because I was scared to do it alone. And just having him as my best friend right alongside in this crazy journey I was about to embark on meant so much. And I remember as I started healing, our relationship just improved dramatically. And then I also went ahead and confirmed the calling with 2 other shamans, and from there I just kind of listened to the spirit world's guidance through synchronicities and messages and dreams to kind of lead me to the various programs, mentors, to kind of get the basic foundations of skills and training that I needed to learn. Honestly, when it comes to being a shaman, no amount of training in this physical world can prepare you adequately, because a shaman and shamanic healing is all about engaging with the spirit world, and what it takes to actually get there is hard. Honestly, it was one of those things where half the training was taught and learned from the programs that was in, but then the other half honestly was fulfilled and taught by the spirit world. Even though some of the things I had to overcome fear-wise was really scary for me, they always came through in the most loving ways, and the messages they had for me was to help me perceive the beauty, to help me perceive the compassion. All right, guys, that's it. I hope that was helpful in giving you some insight and information into what my shamanic awakening experience was like, how I was able to get my calling confirmed, and how I was able to transition from a corporate life into a life of service that I'm currently leading now. I'm going to be posting every single week, most likely on Fridays, Saturdays at the latest. And be sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, share, and comment if you have any questions or thoughts after watching this video. So I look forward to connecting with you guys going forward, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye. Take care.